So, before we go any further, I would like to introduce my co-host for the evening, Mr. Kid Cabello.
Cheers and salutations.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Good to have you here, Kid.
Oh, my friend. Hey, speaking of renovations, I'm going to be posting a tweet on the Heartlands Media account about some super secret project that's happening at Chicago Corner. There'll be a picture posted, but I don't know what's happening. But the only way to find out is if you like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartlands Media and Chicago Corner, and tune in at something really awesome that's happening.
Your host was hard at work tonight at the 99 Perspective studio, getting something ready, and that's all the hint we're going to give. But I'm very proud of how things turned out.
There's a picture on the Heartlands Media account, so it's going to be posted in 3, 2, 1. Posted on the Heartlands Media Twitter account.
And make sure that everybody comes back to the show if you want to check your Twitter to see what's going on.
Yeah, come back to the show, or stay with the show and go to Twitter after the show. Okay, so there you go.
So I want to bring on our guest for the evening. She is the 2022 Chicago Metropolitan Water Reclamation District candidate, and she is going to be running for the 2-term seat on the board, and she is with the Green Party. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Toneal Jackson.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're glad we could schedule and bring you on, as we did Anna earlier this Tuesday, who's running for the representative seat.
State rep for our county. Yep.
Yes. So we're very green over here. We're very, very glad that we have the opportunity to introduce third-party candidates, because as we've said, or as I've said so often on the show, it gets really boring bitching and moaning all the time about what's wrong. So we need to find solutions. And I think a big part of that is introducing and finding and giving a platform to the third-party candidates that people aren't as easily able to find with the regular media outlets, either locally on their channels or on independent media. That's why we're really excited that the Green Party reached out to us on yours and Anna's behalf, so we could have you on the show to talk a little bit about your platforms and what you hope to do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So as I understand it, you have petitioned and you are going to be getting on the ballot, or are petitions still being collected?
No, we are done. So within the Green Party, the MWRD is one of the things that we are established in already. So since we have an established status, then we were able to circulate the petitions already. So we did that from January 13th through March 14th. That was the last day to turn everything in. And so those parties who are not established, they are now circulating. But we're actually done. So with MWRD, all of that stuff is in. We were not contested or challenged, as they would say. So, but thank God for that. And so that means that because I am running unopposed, that I don't have to worry about the primary election. So I'll just be on that November 8th ballot. So yeah, we got enough signatures. We were not challenged. And so, yeah, that is where we are thus far.
Are there any other candidates that have emerged for that 2-year term, or you're going to be running on? Okay.
Yeah, no. So I am just running unopposed within the Green Party. So yes, so the Democrats. So there are, for the 6-year term. So you have 2 different positions for this. You have the 2-year term, which basically is the rest of Deborah Shore's term. She was a former commissioner that Biden appointed to do something with the EPA over the region. So now, since she's been elevated, then the remainder of her term was open. So what happened was Pritzker then appointed Shekinah Perry to kind of run the rest of that until it's time for the election. So you have the 2-year term, and it's going to be myself. I know that Shekinah Perry and Dan Pogorzelski are also both running. Now, what's going to happen for their primary come June 28th, because they're both Democrats, I have no clue, but that is who's running with me. And then with the 6-year term, I think there were like 12 people running for the 6-year term. Mark Bittner is the Green Party person, if you will, who's running for the 6-year term. And then you have a Republican that's running, and then there are 8 other Democrats. Now, 2 of them So two, I mentioned 12, but I only counted 10 because two of them, one withdrew and one was removed. So we'll see what ends up happening next week, because they have a little bit more time to do a final withdrawal. So we'll see what happens on that front. But for the most part, we are really just kind of waiting until June 28th to know what the final say is in terms of who will actually be the final people on the November 8th ballot.
Okay. We already have a question in the live chat. Art, you're getting ahead of me, but we will get to our questions, and I will bring this back up again. Art says, may I ask what candidate Jackson defines as the philosophy of the Green Party, if there is one? Let's hold on that thought, because to start out, when we talk about the Greater Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Chicago, which is a mouthful.
A mouthful, yeah.
Right? I had to go look up, well, what is that? And why is it important to elect good candidates to supervise what's going on there? So I'm going to give a little bit of a quick overview from the Wikipedia page so that people kind of understand what's at stake here. And I'll actually take this down because that Wikipedia page is taking up too much space there. But so the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, also known as the WMRD, originally known as the Sanitary District of Chicago, is a special purpose district chartered to operate in Cook County, Illinois since 1889. Although its name may imply otherwise, it is not part of the city of Chicago's local government, but is created by Illinois state government with an elected board of commissioners. The MWRD's main purposes are the reclamation and treatment of wastewater and floodwater abatement in Cook County to protect the health and safety of citizens and of area waterways. In 1900, the district notably reversed the flow of the Chicago River, and it is currently involved in the large multi-decade construction of the Deep Tunnel and Reservoir Plan, also known as TARP. So some of the responsibilities of the Water Reclamation District, let's see here.
You know what, Jerry? I can make it really simple.
I will pass it to you then. Why don't I pass it to you? Because at least I gave an overview of what it is. This is what you're running for, so you know it all. So I'll pass it along to you.
I won't say I know it all, but I definitely know a lot better to make it more conversational.
Much better than I do.
Yeah, let's make it because.
But before you go on with that, though, tell us a little bit about your background, what you've done before you chose to run for this position. I think it would be great for the audience to know a little bit more about you, Toneal the person, and then Toneal the candidate.
Sure. So about me in a nutshell, I have probably been in the literary world for the last decade plus. So most people know me more so as an author, publisher, speaker type person. I am always educating and empowering, right? I have an organization that's for women. It's called I'm Glad to Be a Woman. So I'm a feminist in my own right, but I'm also a mother. I'm a wife. All of that stuff that's on that screen.
There you go.
That is all me right there. So I do a lot. I wear a lot of hats. And so for me, but I love people. I'm a lover of community. And funny enough, I don't necessarily refer to myself as a politician, right? And I heard someone once describe it humbly as a public servant. And I think that's what best describes me, because
I like that.
Yeah, I've been serving people all my life. I've been married for 21 years. So let me tell you, if you can stay married that long, you have mastered serving somebody. And I have a lot of children. So between my spouse, between my girls, like I've been serving people for a long time. And then within the church community. So I have a genuine heart for people, right? So in terms of what brought me here is really the Green Party and my love for the Green Party. And so I love to be very transparent and letting people know, because I have never considered myself a politician. It's not like I had this lifelong dream to one day become the MWRD commissioner, right? This was just something that we as a party was talking about, something that we felt would be a good move for us holistically. And so that's one of the main reasons why they decided that they wanted for me to run, right? And so it's the same thing with being an author. I was not a person, here I am 18 books in, a national and international award-winning author, but I was not that person that said, oh, one day I want to be an author. So it just kind of seems like I stumble into the various forms and phases of my life. And so this is just the arena where we are right now. So that's Toneal as a person.
Life is like that as you juggle and shift into different places. I never imagined I would be hosting a YouTube live stream show because of my background in film and TV and entrepreneurship. But I love.
But you're doing a fantastic job, Jerry. Come on.
Thanks. It's fun. It's nice to be able to juggle multiple things and realize, you have multiple talents to share and offer. And as far as serving other people, I think that that's a absolutely wonderful way to frame it. And I wish more candidates would frame it that way. And hopefully within your own personal life, with your family and marriage and kids, they're serving you as well, because that's what it is. Give and take all across the board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now about this whole MWRD thing, and you have my permission for the remainder of the show to reference it by the acronym, because it is totally a mouthful, right?
It's like my last name.
But you know what?
Over it.
But like your last name, once you get it, it just kind of flows, right?
Yeah. Just like the water that the Reclamation District is making sure is safe for everybody.
Absolutely. And so when we were out petitioning, so my daughter, she's 19, and so we were out gathering signatures, and she had the hardest time trying to keep those words together too, right? So I told him, like, just say MWRD, and if somebody needs to know, say my mom is right there and she'll tell you the rest, right? So here's the thing that we noticed while we were out petitioning. The average person has no clue what the MWRD does, right? The average person has never even heard of the MWRD. So for me, one of the main reasons what my purpose is I want to educate the public. Again, going back, staying in my wheelhouse, I educate and empower. So what we want to do is make sure that people not just know what the MWRD does, who we are, but why they should care, right? So a lot of times people mistake it and they say, okay, well, I have issues that's going on. My water isn't coming on, and my water isn't. That's a water company thing. So the best way to think about it is all the water that leaves out of your house. So when you flush the toilet, when you're washing your clothes, when you're washing dishes, all of the water that goes out of your house, that's an MWRD issue, right? So within Chicago, we have 7, well, not Chicago, but the greater Chicagoland area, there are 7 plants, but there's a difference between working for the MWRD and being a commissioner, right? So those are 2 separate entities. So what the commissioners do, we pretty much establish policies to protect the water environment. So various things trying to help with the water. So the plants themselves, their purpose to treat the water, to make sure that the water is clean and, the best water as we can to protect our water supply. What we do is help to establish those policies that's going to protect the water. And then the other thing that we do is provide oversight for the actual MWRD. So there's a lot of financial oversight or financial analysis that goes into being a commissioner as well. So it's really kind of like the commissioner is more like an administrative task, the administrative branch of the MWRD, if you want to think of it that way.
Fair enough. Let's go back to Art's question, because I think I'm impressed, because this is stuff even I didn't find when I was doing my research before the show over at Wikipedia. But let's go to Art's question. As a Green Party candidate, he asked, may I ask what candidate Jackson defines as the philosophy of the Green Party, if there is one? And I think also maybe as it relates to this position you're running for as commissioner in the MWRD.
Absolutely. So with the Green Party, we actually have 10 core values, right? So I won't run all of them down for you, but as it pertains specifically to MWRD, where we kind of connect, is that thought of future focus and sustainability, right? So like with the MWRD, some of the issues that's facing them are the very ones that are some of our primary concerns: green infrastructure, water contamination, climate change, of course, right? So these are all issues that we all, Green Party, myself, and the MWRD, we all have these issues in common. So what we believe in terms of the Green Party, obviously we believe in recycling. We believe in wanting the water to be as clean as possible. And so that's really when you talk about our philosophy as it pertains to the MWRD, we have a stake in it because so like there is a project that that the MWRD does where they're trying to do like a storm management or water management thing with debris. So like when you see debris in various in the river or something like that, they have a number where you can call to report it so people can remove that type of stuff, right? So the cleaner that our water is, then the better that it is for us as residents. And so obviously the Green Party has a stake in that. And so for us, that's what we're about. Like I say, you can also look at community-based economics. That's something that the Green Party believes in, that also ties into what as the MWRD, because it's more than just coming to the job 9 to 5. It's about community at large. And that's really for me where I'm coming in at, because so many people, Commissioner Dubuque herself said that the MWRD is the most important agency that no one knows about. I find that to be a huge problem, because if our success holistically is based on everybody's involvement, but people don't know about it, then how can we get better? How can we become better? Whatever the plan is, whether it is to recycle more, whether you're talking about in terms of like with the water, things that you can do, that we can do as citizens, if we don't know. So that's really one of the things that I feel that we can work on to become better, just helping to educate the public at large.
Fantastic.
Very impressive. Kit, do you want to ask a question before I ask someone what I have compiled?
Well, of course, it's the same thing that I want to make sure that our viewing audience understands. And it has to deal with, I guess, some of the issues your campaign will have to deal with in regards to the state of Illinois. Illinois has some hard draconian policies towards third parties. It's difficult for Greens, Libertarians, Independents to get on the ballot, to get on the debate stage.
Yep.
At least for our audience, even for your office, for this Office of Water Reclamation, Metropolitan Water Reclamation Department, the MWRD. But I think it's important that we really talk about some of the challenges that your campaign has had to deal with. What kind of pushback have you gotten from the state of Illinois? Are you able to get enough ballot signatures to be on the ballot? Will there be any? Have you had any kind of coverage by the media? Has the state of Illinois pushed back towards your campaign? Because again, third parties always seem to struggle here in the state of Illinois, and it's something I don't like to see, but it's a reality. So can you tell our audience about the struggles that your campaign has to deal with running in the state of Illinois?
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitively setbacks because there is discrimination, right? I mean, like if we're just going to be totally transparent, it is definitively a major party or duopoly. You know, it's a major party game. So the expectation really, and it's the irony, everybody is tired of just Republican and Democrats, but when you introduce other politics to the table, it's all of these odds that stacked against you, right? So like for us, when we were running, you always have to get at least twice as many votes. But because we are independent party now in this particular race, because we're an established party, it's not a ridiculous amount of votes. So we had to get 1132 is the minimum number. So we want to get, the goal was to try to get twice as much, but I think we came right under 2,000 signatures. But if you go to an unestablished party, right, or unestablished race, I should say, it's going to be like 25,000 signatures that you have to get minimally. So then you want to double that, because what happens is people can come and they can challenge your signatures. And so if you just barely have enough, by the time they finish challenging, and because they're major parties, they have big donors, they take corporate donations. And I think that is very important to note that the Green Party, we don't take corporate donations. So we pretty much operate off of independent donations. And even with that, there's a maximum that we cut you off at. So like if you wanted to give to our campaign, hashtag MWRDgreens.org, the most that you could give is $500 as an individual, right? And I think that it is very important to note that, because even when we're going out to get endorsements, so this is meaning that we're trying to go to other organizations such as the Chicago Federation of Labor, Independent Voter Industry, what is it, IVI-IPO, right? So like various ones, Citizen Action, it's a lot of different organizations that will endorse different candidates. But one of the first questions they ask you on the interview is, how much money have you raised for your campaign? So it's like, okay, I'm running for office. So, but what they do is they automatically, the first thing that they're looking at is how much money have you raised? And if that's not a part of my strategy, why should I be judged off of a criteria that's not even part of my strategy? Like in the age of social media, you actually can be effective without having to have $100,000 raised, $200,000 raised. Like if you really know how to work your social media, or you partner with different people, you can get on various shows. There are ways that you get exposure through effective campaigning. But to your other point, it is difficult to get some of the mainstream media to want to cover you because they've been so used to only covering the two parties, right? And I will say this, it's really catch-22. It's like you can't really point the finger at whose fault it is, because for so long they only had two-party candidates. But then you have people that's finally coming to the table, and it would be great if streams like yourself, platforms like yourself said, hey, here's a third party, let's get a refreshing take. But a lot of times, because they don't necessarily know what to expect, then they're kind of hesitant to open the door. But then that goes back again. It's that circle that never ends. So for me, it's really about trying to get in front of as much media. And I told the Greens, like, it doesn't always have to be a political show, right? Like you just want to get in front of an audience, because everybody, ideally, everybody votes. So you want to be able to get whatever door is open for you that's obviously aligned with your belief system. So if somebody asks me to come on a show because I'm a mom, or because I'm an author, or because I just released a filmmaker, like, right, any of those things, then when I go, even if the show is not about politics, when they ask if there are any final remarks I want to leave, you best believe I'm going to tell them, hey, I'm also running for commissioner for MWRD, so I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. And that's one of the things we're going to have to do. We're just going to have to be creative when it comes to campaigning, because everybody will not give us a platform. So we have to be able to make our own.
Well, it's very clear from your personal website, you're very savvy about how to utilize social media.
I would also like to add on here too. Thank you for explaining the situation and what you have to deal with. And again, the overall problems that prohibits third parties like Greens, like socialists, like libertarians, like independents that have to deal with. Jerry, there are two questions though that are very pertinent that should be asked, because it has to deal with clean drinking water. We've talked about this on the show.
Lead in the water. Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's only fair that for our audience, we've talked about it. And for you as running as a Green Party candidate, especially for the protection of our clean drinking water, we need to ask this. So Jerry, do you want to take it away?
Well, yeah. Well, that was a question I was going to ask about, was the continuing issue of lead in the water. But let me go through my topic list here, just so I had things kind of like constructed in order, as far as like more of Toneal's philosophies, reasons to run, and then policy focused questions. So on a personal level, of all the offices to decide to run for as a candidate, because clearly you're very, very passionate about the Green Party and what they stand for, and representing, protecting the people, what personally inspired you to decide that the MWRD was the office to put your efforts into?
Okay, so there is the honest answer to it is this, but it's not the complete answer. So I'm gonna give you the answer and lead in with the rest.
Okay.
So it's really because this was what was presented to me, right? So initially it was like, hey, this office is coming up. We already have an established status within this office. We believe that you make a good candidate for it. Is this something you'd be interested in? And so, like, once I did further research into not just what the MWRD is, right? Because honestly, here was my setback initially. What I was saying with, do I actually want to run? Because I'm not a chemist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a conservationist. And so those are some of the obvious things that people are going to point out, right? Because people are coming to the table with all of these, degrees in waterology and water management and all of that. That's not me. Yes, I do have a master's degree in business, but what made me say, you know what, I believe I can do this, is because a few things. Number one, I am definitely an organizer. So if I don't know how to do anything else, grassroots democracy is one of the Green Party's values, and that is who I am at my core. There's so many different organizations that I've taken and made from nothing. So if I know nothing else, I know how to build. I know how to connect with people, right? But then when I went to the MWRD's website, they have an entire tab that's dedicated to education. But here is the caveat. When you look at what they've done, it's not really anything. So like technically speaking, they have something where they do this seminar every quarter, but when you look at the views, it's like in 2 years, maybe 90 people have seen it. So it's not really a push that's happening. They have this annual event that they do, and I looked at it, and when I'm looking at it, not only, it wasn't even just that it wasn't a lot of views, but the way that it was set up, it wasn't really fun or interactive. So you kind of understand why it was really geared to people who already understand what the MWRD is, right? And so the whole point is, if you're trying to get other people who are involved who don't know, then you have to be able to talk to people on their level. And I think that sometimes when people have all of these different degrees or whatever, then they feel how to say this without being mean, they feel it necessary to act, to show you their superiority. And for me, I'm a person that can be in both rooms equally with no, I can be in the room with scholars because, again, I have a master's degree. I can understand what you're saying, but because of the heart that I have, I'm going to then take your information and give it to the people who's being affected by it, right? So that's what made me then say, when I saw that they have this whole Department of Education, and I'm like, but that's what I do. That's what I have a passion for. So whereas, no, I might not be able to have a conversation with you about pH balance and waste management, I know what it's like to have a basement flooded. I know what that feels like. I know what we want to do to try to overcome that. So like issues that affect us every day, when people understand why, like what it is that we actually do, then they'll get why they should care. So that was really what made me say, yeah, I'm actually going to take this, because even though technically it may not be in my wheelhouse, there are definitely areas that are, and that I can make them be. So yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because when I was researching your background before having you on the show, I didn't see any experience as we see with some other candidates. And it sounds like from what you're saying, obviously there's a passion. Even if you're not clear on the science, you know how to connect with the people who know the science to also bridge the gap between just the practical understanding of what the problems are affecting. This is Oreo. He says hello.
Hi,
He's always
Oreo.
joining me.
The official producer.
The official producer of the show. To be able to solve these problems, because this was kind of going into one of my other questions, which related to what prior experience do you have that you feel elevates you above other candidates to propose the best solutions you and other board members will be responsible for? Well, you just answered that question very, very clearly, and I appreciate very honestly, because that was one of the things I was curious about after seeing some of the other candidates that were running and some of the backgrounds. And admittedly, I'm not a scientific person. I would be very, very overwhelmed going into something that I didn't have that kind of background in, but it does sound like you've figured out how to, what's the word, in time when you were elected, be able to find the resources to support what you're trying to do within the scientific community or the science community with the backgrounds and degrees in science. Yeah.
I mean, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, we're all people. Take all your degrees and titles to the side. And there are things that affect all of us. Today is Earth Day, right? So at the end of the day, this planet means something to everybody. It doesn't care what your title is. If we don't take care of the planet, if we don't take care of the elements, so whether you're talking about obviously recycling, but definitely within this, water, stormwater, rainwater, wastewater, if we don't take care of it, I don't care who you are, then we're gonna, you live by it, you're gonna die by it, right? Yeah. And so for me, one of the things that's really lacking It's just that community element. Like, you're not really communicating with the community at large. You're communicating with the key people who you've deemed as being key people, but that's not your everyday person. And so for me, like, I went on their website and they talked about 9 different tips, things that, the everyday person can do, whether it's talking about, like, just with I'm thinking about like the salt, right? When in Chicago, when it snows, we have certain salt that we use, but the salt that most people use is something that's actually going to be harmful for the planet. So it's something as simple as, like, they give different tips of what you can do instead of using that salt. There's a particular salt that they prescribe. They also talk about fertilizer or using mats. Like, they give different things that you can do that does not cost, is cost effective. It's even like with pharmaceuticals, unused pharmaceuticals. There are things that we can do. A lot of people don't know you shouldn't be flushing your unused pharmaceuticals down the toilet. Because why? A lot of times you see these movies, and when it's sprayed, first thing they do is flush everything down the toilet, right? But that is horrible. We don't, that is really hurting our water. So what, and so I'm like, well, what are we doing about that? And there are literally four in all of Cook County, there are 4 collection sites, MWRD official collection sites. And so for me, that's one of the first things that we changed, right? Because even though they have other local collection sites that you can take your things to, here's the thing: mostly every one of those, because I looked them all up, they all have restrictions on either what you can bring, when you can bring it. And so if I'm out trying to do my civic duty, right, and I happen to come on a Tuesday to drop it off at noon, and you tell me, oh, the cutoff time was 11:30, what are the chances that I'm going to come back again a week later? You see what I'm saying? So these to me are like just some basic things that I think we're overlooking, some of the basic things that we could do to get everybody involved. So those are some of the things that I'm looking at. Is just things that everyday people can do, that you don't have to have a master's degree in wastewater. And again, that's no shade to anybody that does that, because like Mark, who is running for the 6-year term, he actually has degrees in wastewater. He's actually that guy. If you want to sit down, he worked in the wastewater plant for years. So if you want to sit down and talk about all of that technical stuff with Metropolitan water reclamation and all of the water and the bacteria and phosphates and all of that, he's the guy that literally can do that. But
it's like the superhero team up, you and Mark from the Green Party.
Yeah,
there we go. I think it's overdue that we actually have some accountability, especially for Chicago's drinking water, that for a long time has been heavily contaminated by a lot of dangerous metals and chemicals. Yep. Not only here, again, with our previous infrastructure, but from outside elements as well.
And I was about to get to that as we talk about poisons and toxins in the water supply. The big elephant in the room is lead in our drinking supplies. So before I go to the other questions, why don't we talk a little bit about that, some of your thoughts on that and the Green Party's thoughts on that. How do we approach that huge, seemingly insurmountable challenge that has been evident for so long that they still haven't seem to manage getting control over?
Yeah, that is a question that Mark typically takes, and what he says all the time, like the lead in the water, he said that's actually not an MWRD thing. So that is something, obviously, as a citizen, you're still going to be concerned about it. Yeah. But where do we start? I mean, like, obviously, for me, somebody like me, my thing is going to be bringing awareness to it. Once we know about it, then what is the alternative, right? Like, because obviously the more lead that you have in the water, it becomes dangerous. So now you're not drinking the water, you're not going to be swimming in the water, you're not going to be, all of those things. And so it's really just what is the reality, or how realistic is it to think that within 2 years, you'll be able to change a situation that's been going on for,
I guess the larger question is, granted, if it's not MWRD's responsibility, how do they use their positions in water management to leverage or lean on those that are responsible? And hopefully we're going to be having Mark on the show also then that's a question we can put to him, because it just seems that when the water reclamation district is responsible for the processing of water, the wastewater, and then the transmittal of safe water to citizens within Illinois, how do they manage to like have some kind of a influence on the issue of lead through those waterways? Where does that come from? And Kit, I don't know if you have any thoughts on other bodies that might have some responsibility over that have failed before.
Well, the thing is, like, it's rather surprising that this is something that doesn't fall within the jurisdiction. Yeah. But is there any way that your office can actually bring more awareness to, I guess, aldermen or these or that state senators or state house representatives? Because with lead in our drinking water in a major metropolitan city, we've already seen the disaster in Flint, Michigan. Yeah. Well, that is a smaller town or smaller city compared to Chicago. I mean, no city, town across the United States of America should have lead in its drinking water. Chicago is a metropolitan city. We're one of the biggest cities here in this country, right next to New York, LA, Miami, and it's frightening to know that this dangerous element is in our drinking water. How can your office actually help to actually bring more awareness to this? Because I think people still have either forgotten or have given up on the fact that no one has done anything to address this very serious issue.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, let's say this: you are definitely preaching to the choir, because when you look at Cook County alone has close to 6 million residents. So we're not even talking about the state of Illinois, just talking about Cook County is almost 6 million residents. So that's a huge number of people. It would definitely be something that I would want to bring awareness to. I mean, like whether you're talking about and to me, when we talk about awareness, it's one thing just to tell people a fact, but to me, that second part that automatically goes with it is now what do you do about it, right? So first, we want to make sure that you know about it, and then what are some things that we can put together so that we can actually be effective in eliminating this problem. And so for me, I would definitely, again, and being totally transparent, I would definitely have to research more into this, because this is not my quote unquote wheelhouse in terms of knowing about pH balance and lead in this. Am I aware of lead in the water? Absolutely. In terms of what is it that we can practically do to alleviate that issue, that's something that we would definitely have to figure out. Like, you would have to find out how long would it take to come up with this particular issue, or is there certain water supply that isn't affected by it, or how might we be able to isolate certain waters to only, so those are definitely some issues that we would have to come into a little bit more. And let's read this.
Well, you know what? Ed just shared this with me in the Slack, and of course, it's from 2021. It's from last year, June of 2021. But apparently, Illinois passed landmark legislation to replace lead pipes, but I haven't heard much about it since this article apparently dropped. Chicago Department of Water Management crews install a water main pipe. Under the new law, water systems will be required to replace the full lead service line at the time of water main replacement. So I guess that this is something that will happen when other repairs or replacements are scheduled. That's when they'll replace the lead pipe. So it's not all going to happen at once, obviously, clearly. Yeah. But at least it seems like there is some effort beginning now. And this, as this was reported last June, really quickly, to your points, Kit, bans partial lead service line replacement, the dangerous practice of removing only the section from the water main to the property line. This causes disruption of the remaining portion of the service line and can result in significantly increased levels of lead contamination in drinking water. They're banning that. This new proposal requires water systems to submit an initial service line materials inventory to the state by April 15, 2023, and a final complete inventory by April 15th of 2024, which is sadly a little too long. But it requires water systems to submit an initial lead service line replacement plan to the state by April 15th, 2024, and an updated plan every April 15th for review by the state until a final comprehensive plan is submitted by April 15th, 2027. So it sounds like there's something proposed there, but it's not fast enough. I don't think that that's quick enough for what we're facing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so all we really can do is just kind of, looking and seeing what is there a more realistic plan in terms of a quicker timetable?
Yeah.
Because 2027, it sounds like it's far off. And I mean, when we're living it every day, it's far off, but that's really 5 years away, And so
Yeah. Yeah.
time is just because when I think about the year 2015, various reasons why that year pops up in my mind, it doesn't seem like 2015 was 7 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
Sure.
before we know it, especially with everything else that's going on, and that's probably too, and it's not, again, it's not to push the issue off, but when this whole pandemic coronavirus came in, like, I think that took priority over everything.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Clearly,
nobody was
obviously,
thinking
it had
about
to.
yeah. And so I think is really one of those things. It's kind of just like how I feel about the whole educational system with our kids, and not to get off this subject, but like how I feel that our children kind of became collateral damage to coronavirus, because understanding you could only deal with one issue at a time, and it's the same issue here. Like, but although you're trying to prioritize what's more important, the things that you're not tending to, they're still important, and people are still falling by the wayside until those things are actually addressed as well. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with your perspective on that.
My dad tossed a comment into the chat, which we just were able to thankfully reference in this article that Ed shared with us, Dad, regarding what was proposed last year, but how long it's going to take. He asked, Chicago infrastructure must be updated by replacing all of the old lead pipes, which contributes to the lead in the drinking water. Humongous project. They're going to be replacing the pipes slowly as they go with any ongoing repairs.
Mm-hmm.
JR in the chat says, I don't think the funding will be available the way the war is building up with Russia. Interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Lazy Ale Ranch. Chicago is huge, and that's a massive undertaking, so I get why it will take a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's still, even though Chicago is a major city, it's huge. I mean, let's face it, there are communities all across the south and west side of the city of Chicago that have been heavily neglected. And again, with gentrification running amok, with lead in our drinking water, it causes people to be displaced. Generations of families that have been living here in Chicago moving out. And what was once the beating heart and soul of Chicago, which was the people who've been living here for generations, being moved out. And then you have, again, these large real estate developers moving in, they're privatizing everything. And of course, they're going to get out of the lead pipes and everything else, but then the city's going to be taxed with it. At this point, we have to make the undertaking now to prevent this city from becoming something that it really shouldn't be, and that is something that's overly expensive, which it already is.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to the point to where what made Chicago what it is, its people will no longer be here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a problem that I don't know. And I see now we're bringing it down because now it's going to be sad, but I don't know that this really has a happy ending, right? Like, because again, what the viewer just shared, because now you're trying to get some type of normalization, if you will, with COVID, the pandemic, and all of that. Now you have this war breakout. So all of these issues are always going to seem, whether they actually are, they're always going to seem more pressing, right? And unfortunately, it always seems to take people dying, people losing their lives before we actually, because everything has to become a headline first, right?
Yeah.
So like when you pulled that up, Jerry, like that was from, you said 2021, right?
Last June. Yeah.
And so that means, but how many other headlines have there been since then? You could probably count. You see what I'm saying? So like with us, if the message is through the media isn't talking about that right now. And so it's not going to be until something crucial happens in a bad way that now it becomes the talking point again. And so it's like you have to have people working behind the issues. And so if indeed there's some type of way, to get back to your question, Kit, if there is some type of way, because again, the lead that we're seeing isn't deriving from the water supply, it's the fact that the water supply is being affected by the lead, right? So if there is a way that you can figure out, again, this project that is going to be a massive project, I don't know that that's a problem that's going to be solved in 6 months to a year. You see what I'm saying? Like, because when you're talking about something like this, it is a major undertaking. And so you're praying that another strain of corona doesn't break out. You're praying that war within the US doesn't break out. So all of these other things are still more so in the forefront of people's minds. And so while you're trying to deal with that on this side, you're also having to be faced with what's going on. So what can we do right here, right now? And so honestly, I don't know that you're going to get something to heal this, because right now it's just band-aids. So is there something that we're going to be able to do within the next 6 months to a year that's better than what's already being done? I don't necessarily know. And then I'll say this and shut up for now. But that's the other reason, like with me in running for this office, you know, I am not a person that believes in over promising, right? I believe in over delivering. I feel like one of the reasons why people hate politics or politicians even is because everybody says all the right things that they need to say, you know, and so they'll say, you know, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to end war. I'm going to stop poverty. I'm going to do all of these things. And you have a 4-year term. You see what I'm saying? Like for me, I have a 2-year term. And so I'm not coming in promising the sun, the moon, and the stars. What I have a plan that I want to do, that I want to execute to try to tangibly change 3 main elements in what's going on with, you know, with the MWRD, with the water, with that type of the contamination. That's what I'm trying to do, that even if all 3 things are not effective, at least one thing we began to work on, because 2 years is not really a long time. And I think that if we had people more honest in saying what they're actually able to do, then people will respect the progress that they made, as opposed to saying, you know what, yeah, I'm going to take this issue and I'm going to fix it. And now it looks like I'm a liar. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that it is very disheartening what's going on. Unfortunately, it's not a new issue. I pray that we're able to get it fixed before it gets completely out of hand. But that 5-year projection is probably, that might even be a little bit, you know, not feasible. I mean, it might be more 7 to 10 years. Yeah. I mean, like, I pray that 5 years is actually a realistic goal.
Yeah, good point again from my dad. Thanks for joining in tonight, Dad. Lead pipe removal program should have been initiated back when lead was being removed from paint, when they knew that it was dangerous. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Lazy Abel Rand says he likes you, Toneal.
I like you too.
We've got some happy viewers listening to what you have to share here, and I do really appreciate your transparency and your honesty. You're not, you know, unlike a lot of other candidates that tend to talk down and act like they know everything. I would prefer a candidate that says, I'm not particularly strong here, but I'm going to make every effort to find the people to support me that know this stuff, because that's what you need, because you're advocating for the stuff that the rest of us are dealing with. And I think that that's very, very refreshing. Let me cover 2 other quick questions here that I had prepared regarding the current Water Management Board. What is the Green Party's view on how the current commissioner and board are managing water management and reclamation that they feel is lacking? Or do you know, or have they shared some of that with you?
Let me tell you what we talk about.
Okay.
All right, let's hear it.
So there are actually 9 commissioners, right? So the board of commissioners are comprised of 9 people. Now, here's what's really crazy. This year, 5 of them will not be returning, right? So normally they have it where it's kind of like every other year. So there's always a majority. You have at least 5 or 6 that are still in play while you're trying to elect the other, 3, maybe 4, sometimes even 2. But this year you have Barbara McGowan, who's been on the MWRD board since '98. She's retiring, so she won't be here anymore. The president, Carrie Steele, she's actually running for Cook County Assessor, so she won't be here anymore. Then you have, I want to say Josina Marita, she's going to a different position. I know, like I say, Shakina Perry is rerunning, she's the 5th one. And then it's somebody else, I forgot, one of the other board members, they're not going to be there anymore. So essentially, when we come on board, we're only coming back to the foundational 4 that will still be in play. And so what the thing we don't really talk about as the Green Party, we don't necessarily talk about the Board of Commissioners specifically. And I want to make a point about that. Here is my thing when it comes, because I'm not a mudslinger, and you guys probably have picked that up by now. Because here's the thing: when you're running a race and you're talking about all these negative things, they're just doing this horrible job.
Well, not that the board members are necessary. Let me forgive me. Not that the board members are negative, but like where are they not paying attention? That's important. That's what I mean.
Oh, I got you. And
yeah, it's not personal.
But there are other shows that I've done where they ask about the board and the negative thing. They're looking for that. That's what I'm saying. So what my point just is that, you have to be very careful, because you don't want to talk about anybody negative that ideally you're going to be working with, because they're going to remember what you said about
there you go.
For a very, uncomfortable situation. But in terms of things that we think holistically what the MWRD board can do better, there are a lot of projects. So they have meetings, they have board meetings every other Thursday, right? And the public can tune into these board meetings. Because of COVID thus far, they have been virtual. So you can just go online, mwrd.org, and you can, if you want to get some of the prior minutes, you have access to that. If you want to watch some of the meetings, so they allow you to watch the meetings. And there are a lot of projects that get approved for like millions of dollars. Like every meeting is like these big numbers, and you're really like, well, what is this about? And so what we as the Green Party would like to see is more projects that's actually going for community building, not just like, and again, just saying what it is, you get people coming in with all of these big corporate donations on the front end to get them in office. So now you get all of these corporate projects approved now that they're in office, whether it's for the good of the people, none of that even matters, And so you're just kind of slinging all of this money around, and you're approving for these dollars. And so what we would like to be done better is to have like the different land that MWRD has access to. Let that be something that's going to benefit the community at large. Let it not cost $2 million for somebody, like an up and coming business. So we want to kind of leverage the playing field some. And so, like I say, they may not want me in office because I'm definitely the person for the people. Like I could care. I purposely align myself with an office that doesn't take corporate money, because my belief is that all money is not good money, right?
Well, yeah, the corporate money is what's not solving problems. And I don't want to necessarily say that's influencing the current board or the commissioners, but if nothing's changing, then there has to be some fresh blood in there. And I do think that the influence of money from big corporations and big donors like that, obviously, I mean, we've on a separate level, we've seen how a public utility donating to Michael Madigan and the Democratic Party downstate influences public policy regarding utilities and the monopolies, and they're allowed to run rampant, and there's so much corruption. And that's because these big corporations have the ability to throw money at the candidates to fund their campaigns, where smaller candidates like yourself, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but that are relying on, what I mean? It's like you want to represent people, and that's why you've got to keep that element out of the process, because it's quid pro quo. They're going to expect something back for their money, although that's not what a donation should be about.
Absolutely. And because it definitely clouds the issues, right? Because once you take corporate donations, now you become their mouthpiece. And so, or at least that's what it feels as though, right? Like that's the expectation. So now I don't care what you actually felt, because I gave you this money. You have to talk on behalf of what I feel or what we feel as a company. And it's not really, to me, it's not really fair to the people. And it goes back to the earlier question that you asked. That's one of the reasons why I personally feel that question about how much money you've raised in your campaign, that should be eliminated off of every questionnaire.
Yes.
Like because that has nothing to do with my ability to lead. It had like if you just want to know, do you have fundraising experience? That's one thing. That's a totally separate issue than to want to know exactly how much money I've raised in my campaign. Because again, if the purpose of those funds for campaigning is to make sure that I get exposure, you should then ask me, what is your campaign strategy? How effective have you been in with, executing your strategy? But that's not what they're asking. And so nobody is dumb. And so that's why I say, like, I have not read a questionnaire yet for endorsement that does not ask how much money. And it is a known fact that the Greens do not take corporate donations. And so if you're going to judge me based upon the fact that my counterparts have raised $70,000 and $50,000, I don't have to raise that type of money, but for outsiders looking in, so now it clouds the actual issue because it's, oh, so are you're voting for me based upon how much money I'm able to raise, or are you voting for me for what type of job you believe that I can do in this specific office? So yeah, I think that we definitely have to kind of put it in its place. And as a Green member, we unapologetically let everybody know that no, we don't take corporate donations. Like, we don't try to be on the defense and, oh, well, we didn't get nobody. No, that's our stance on purpose. We intentionally want it that way. And so
it goes back to what you said a moment ago. You are a public servant.
Yeah,
absolutely. This is to serve the public. It's become the corporate states of America, not the United States of America. And going back to your point earlier in the show, which I mentioned, I like the way you frame it. You look at this as public service, public servant.
Absolutely.
You're not and a representative for the people. Great comment from True Democracy Now.org. And I think that this is probably a good point to leave it on, or a good question to leave it on. But he asks, this is Dominic Palella, who will make the final decision for this political office to implement? Is there a majority vote of the officers, and does the office president have more political power than the commissioners?
So,
do you know?
So what I have seen thus far from the board meetings, so the only thing that is visible for the public are their board meetings. In terms of what else they do behind the scenes, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that the president probably has more power. But what I have always seen her do, her being Carrie Steele in the meetings that I have seen, is always deflect to the other commissioners, right? So every commissioner gets a say so just for the board meetings specifically. So everybody has an agenda, everybody gets to review the agenda, and they get to bring up whatever issues are specifically bothering them. Like if they want to particularly talk about this issue. Now, it's probably 40, 30, 40 issues on the agenda. So obviously they're not going to be talking about all of them, but each person, there'll be meetings where only 2 or 3 commissioners may have a certain issues, but every commissioner does have the opportunity to raise their concerns. But the president, from what I've seen with the meetings, she's simply presiding over the meetings and keeping that in control. But again, other aspects of what the board does, those are not, is not televised for the public to see. So I'm not sure what her actual specific duties are beyond that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Toneal Jackson, candidates for the 2-year term for the 2022 Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. There she is. You've heard her platform, Kit?
Yes. Will you be hosting any kind of live events or anything else so that our viewers and subscribers, if they live in the city of Chicago or Chicagoland area, if they want to check out your campaign events, is there anything you're hosting online? If they want to learn more about your campaign, where can they go?
Absolutely. And thank you for asking, Kit. So people can get me all across social media. So on Facebook, that's probably, I live there the most. But on Facebook is just me. If you want to friend me, then you can go to Toneal Jackson. If you want to follow my page, I recently set up a public figure page, and that's it, Toneal M. Jackson MBA. So you guys can go and follow that. And then we also have, if you're more interested in Green Party politics, you can become a member of the Cook County Green Party, which also the chairwoman too, recently appointed chairwoman for the Cook County Green Party. And so we will be having events that people can come out to. We have a meeting coming up June 6th, but even before that, I'm always going live. I do a Toneal Talks Politics on Mondays on Facebook from my personal page. And so, like I say, there's always something that I'm doing politically, is more so the Toneal Talks Politics, and then what I do within the confines of my Green Party stuff. But other than that, I'm always wearing a literary hat somewhere, a feminist hat somewhere. So I'm not difficult to find, kid.
It looks like it.